let's make a start then. So today I'm obviously using what Lisa has recently released on TV. So this is where we're headed, and I've called him Mouse in a Wood Pile. Well, I would, wouldn't I? Let's run through what I'm going to be using on this card today. So I'm going to be using two of the brand new 3D embossing folders, the SLIMLINE ones. I'm using the Bark Effect and the log pile. I love this. I think this is so clever. And Natalia's card with the logs in the background and then another set of logs a different colour on the front. Fabulous card. Really, really versatile and fantastic for men's cards. For me, this one, and probably the paint splat, I think would be perfect for men's cards, depending on what colours you use. So another awesome set of folders there. I'm also using the foiled and plain sticker sentiments. I've said to you before how much I love these. I'm also using the Pretty Petals paper pad because it's the only papers of Lisa's that I've got that have got the colours in that I needed, and I wanted yellows, so that's why I've used those. They are out of stock and I'm not sure they'll ever come back, so sorry. I've also used two sets of different dies. Now I've used these before, obviously I used these last Thursday. They have since sold out. I have no idea whether they will be back. I hope so, because they're a superb, really useful set of dies, but I'm using those today. I'm using some of the flowers and the branch. And then I'm using this fabulous set, the Garden Greenery set. Now there's 12 dies in here, and I think this is probably one of the most versatile sets you could buy. I'm just using the fence out of this set today, and then of course I am using the fabulous washi papers that Lisa bought to you. So I used the cute set, and I've also used the floral set, and I've only used one little die out of here. Now I haven't got the dies yet, so I've fussy cut these. That was a labour of love, I can tell you. But just a little tip, when you're die cutting, when you're fussy cutting, and they are sort of quite fiddly, like this one, when you're cutting out, I'd use a smallish pair of scissors and move your card, not your scissors. So if you're cutting, move your card round and keep your scissors still. It's a much easier way of fussy cutting, and you'll get a much better finish. Okay, so just a little tip that I've picked up along the way. And then I'm also using this gorgeous texture card. I just think it's Lisa's favourite colours. They're some of my favourite colours, and it's just such fabulous quality card to use. Okay, so this is where we're headed. So let's make a start. Now I'm using, I know there are people who always ask what size of card that I'm using. This is an 8x8 card base. And then my piece of card that I'm using to mat and layer is 7.5 by 7.5, which just gives me that nice white border around it. And then I've used the Bark Effect embossing folder. Now I've cut this twice. When I did yesterday's card, this is all one piece, okay? But when I was cutting it, putting it through my die cutting machine, it scared me to death, because I had to put it sort of landscape way on. And when the rollers ran over the embossing folder, it made such an awful noise. And I know why. It's because it's got that long straight piece of embossing folder to get over with the rollers. So I wasn't worried that it had broken, but it just scared me. And then I moved the card down in the folder and did the same again, and obviously the same thing happened. So I thought what I would do today is do it in two pieces, just to show you that you can do it in two pieces. You don't have to try and make the piece of embossing bigger by putting it through and moving it in your folder. So this is two pieces, and what I've done is I've backed it onto a piece of card, just scrap card that I've got another image on, and this is 7 by 7. So again, it's going to fit on my matting and layering and just come down in a perfect size. Now I know where the join is, but I think if you were looking at it and sending it out, I would defy anybody to say, oh look, she's joined that, because I don't think it shows up personally. Okay, so let's put this piece down and then we'll just put some colour on that embossed card, because I want it to look like, if I just glue this first and then I'll tell you the little scenario of my mouse in a wood pile. Move that out of the way, Dawn. I don't want a sticky paper on top of that. And again, I'm using Lisa's fabulous glue, because it's just the best glue I've ever used, and I can't ever see me using anything else. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you, the little story behind my card. So my mouse is hiding in a log pile, okay, so that's pretty obvious. The log pile is round the back of a barn, okay, and the barn is that sort of whitewashed wood. And sometimes when you've got whitewashed wood out in the air and the elements, it gets sort of a worn look to it, and that's what I wanted on here. I didn't want this to be brown, I just wanted it to have some colour to it. So I've used a couple of colours on here, which I'll come to in a second. So next to the barn there's a big tree, and the tree's got overhanging branches, which is where the owl is sitting. And then of course the fence is there to keep the logs from falling over. So you see, I thought about it. I know I'm a bit mad, but you know, it helps sometimes, honestly. Right, so let's add some colour to this. Let's just move this base card out of the way and add some colour to this. So I'm going to start with Shabby Shutters Distress Oxide, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure on here at all. I'm just adding a bit of background colour, background green on here. I'm hardly touching this card at all. You can see where I'm holding the brush, which means I'm not putting a great deal of pressure on the card at all. I just want this green to be in the background. Do you know what? I've just realised I put the embossing folders down on the wrong side. What a twit. Anyway, I've decided to use the deboss side of this folder. What an idiot. But hopefully it'll have a similar effect. So I've added my green. That was Shabby Shutters. And then I'm going to use Gathered Twigs, which is a brown colour. Because I do want it to have some brown. I just don't want the card to be totally brown. And again, really light touch. Yeah, it's not bad, it's not bad. Really, really light touch, just to highlight that grain. So not hardly any pressure at all. See, I did this on purpose really, just to show you that you could use either side of the embossing folders. That's it. And then what I'm going to do is just go around the edge of this, just to give it some definition when I stick it to my card. So I'm using one of the small wonder brushes just to add my ink around the edge of the card. Where the join is stands out even less now than it did before, to my mind. I'm not going to add any more green to that. I'm going to leave it exactly as it is. So I think that's enough. Okay. So then I'm going to add this to my base card. Now, I'm not layering it up because there's quite a bit of layering on my log pile and my fence and my flowers. So I think that's enough. Obviously, I have to bear in mind that people sometimes will need to post these cards. So it's worth just thinking about how thick it's going to be by the time you've finished adding all your layers, and just bearing that in mind. I want it that way. Okay, doesn't really matter which way up you put it. Now the reason I added it to a piece of card was A, so that I could cut it at the right size without spoiling the embossing folder, because the one thing that you need to be careful of is if you cut in this embossing folder, once you've embossed it, once you try and cut it, you might find that your cutter will rag the edges, which was what happened to mine. I don't know whether you can see here, the edge was a bit ragged, and it was down here, but obviously you can't see this edge because I've covered it up with the log pile. But just something to bear in mind, that the texture card is beautiful, but once you've embossed it, it makes it a little bit, it almost feels flimsier. It isn't, obviously it's the same thickness, but it might just rag when you try and cut it. So that's why I added it to another piece of card, so that I could add it to my card and cut it with scissors rather than try and cut it in my cutter. Okay, so next piece is my log pile. Now obviously I've run it through my embossing folder and I've cut off all the extra edges. Okay, I've already cut the pieces that I need, but I just wanted to show you what it looked like in one piece really before I cut it out. And you can see how deep the embossing is, but it's good because it will give you a guide as to where to cut it, so you can cut around these little logs really easily and still have the sort of rough edges, because the embossing is that deep. You can cut round it and you can use that as a guide. Okay, so these are the two pieces I've cut, and this is my back piece, and this is the piece that's going to go down first here. Okay, now you can see here that I've put some marks here. This is where my little mouse is going to sit, so that I know when I put my other piece on the top, my mouse is going to be sitting in the right place. I'll come down a bit so you can see that. That would help, wouldn't it? Okay, so I've put my marks where my mouse is going to be, so that I can stick my mouse on when I've put this down, and I can put my other piece on the top and know that my mouse is going to be in the right place. Okay, so let's stick this down. And again, I'm doing this piece flat because my front piece and my mouse are raised up, so obviously I don't want to go too mad with raising bits up here, there and everywhere. And I'm just adding the glue to the pieces that are going to sit proud when I put it down, so that's what's going to stick it to my embossing. Okay, I would line that edge up. Obviously I've already cut this to size, but you can see that I've actually cut it a little bit on the slant, but you're not going to see that because when I add that piece on the front, that's going to hide that, so that's not going to matter. Okay, so I've already put my 3D pads on the back here of my little mouse. I've cut these to fit, so of course this is going to play silly devils coming off, but never mind. So I'll just stick my little mouse down where my marks are, and like I say, I now know that he will be in the right place when I put my front logs on. Okay, so my front logs are going over the top of my mouse, and you can see that my logs perfectly sit over my mouse, and he sort of just sits nicely behind that little log pile, just popping up to say hi. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is my owl. So I'm going to add my branch on and just put my glue on here, and like I said, the tree is standing next to the barn, so this is why the branch is overhanging in front of the barn wall. Okay, so I just put that there. I want him to come quite sort of down quite a bit, so that it comes into the card, it's not sitting up the top of the card, because that way it gives me room to sit my little owl on here without him coming sitting proud of the card. Okay, now obviously I worked that out beforehand, just so that I knew whereabouts to put my branch. and it's just something to bear in mind. Plan it out first. When I did this one, I laid it all out before I stuck anything down, just to make sure that I was happy with how it all looked before I actually made it a final piece. So again, I've put my 3D pads on the back of my owl, and I've just curved him round a bit just to give him a little bit of shape. And then I'm going to put his little feet on the branch, and I'm going to bring him forward a little bit so that I bend his little legs a bit. Okay, let's stick him down there. Okay, then I'm going to put my fence in. Now with my fence, I want my fence to go round this log pile. Okay, so I've actually bent one of the pieces here so that it sits here, bends away, and then sits flat against the embossed piece at the back. Okay, and then I'm going to stick that down, and then I'm going to put the other piece over the top on the other side. I just think this set particularly is so cool for scene building and sort of, you know, little fun cards for kids, and I just think it's perfect. So that's going on the edge there. Make sure I've got my little bend in my fence there. And then this one is going on top of here like that. Okay, so there's my fence in place. Alright, now I'm going to add my flowers, and again I've cut these out of contrasting paper, complementary paper even, and I've already added my pearls because I wanted the pearls to be stuck properly before I added my flowers to my tree. Now believe it or not, these papers are yellow. They actually look a little bit green on here, but they are yellow, trust me. And I'm just adding onto the end of the branches, not covering too much of the branches with these, because I just want it as like a little accent flower on the branches. So that's going on there. And like I say, when I've run these through my die cutting machine, I've made so many that I've now got the biggest collection of flowers ready to sort of make up. It's unbelievable. Okay, nearly done. And like I say, this glue is just, once these are on and this glue is set, they're not going anywhere. Okay, so there's my little flowers on my tree. And then the last thing, don't need my glue anymore. Last two things is my sentiment, which I've already added my 3D pads to. And I used the popping by to say hi, because I just thought it fits this card perfectly, because that's what he's doing, isn't it, really? And then last thing, just to add my flowers onto the fence, just so that it just breaks up the brown really at the bottom, not for any other reason, just to make it look a bit prettier. If you put it straight, it would help, wouldn't it? Okay, so there you go. Two cute cards that look similar but totally different, and I think I do prefer the embossed side of the folder, but I think the debossed side works equally as well. So remember, there's no mistakes in crafting, just happy accidents. So I hope you enjoyed that. I should be here Thursday morning at 10 o'clock, probably doing a mandala card of some description, so I hope you can join me for that on Thursday at 10. So have a fabulous week. I'll see you Thursday. Lisa will be back on Friday night as usual at 7 o'clock, and I hope you can join Lisa as well. I'm sure there'll be loads to tell you. So thanks for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you all again very soon. Bye for now.